Hey guys, welcome to the rollout. I am Lindsay Rousseau.
And I am Genevieve Marie. Hello and welcome. We are here alone today.
Just the two of us. Just the two of us,
Just us.
which we'd never done
Very
before.
intimate experience. Yes, it's a very intimate experience today. You get just pure, unfiltered Genevieve and Lindsay.
Yep.
And that might work out to our benefit.
Right. We couldn't do our reaction videos. We're still trying to figure that out. Thank you, Disney censorship. And we did fine on our own. So we figured, why not do a show?
Yeah. I'm excited. I am very excited.
So you can't tell from my background or my shirt. We're going to talk a little bit about Black Widow and maybe a little bit about Loki.
Or my shirt that we're talking about Black Widow.
It's okay. I got you, girl. I got you for both.
We got good color coordination going on here. It's a whole mood.
It is. It's like the light and the dark,
Right.
Yeah. So let's get started. Yeah. So Black Widow obviously opened and has so far surpassed Fast and the Furious 9 in the box office. So that's a thing.
That is actually
it crossed,
quite impressive.
I mean, I'm sure the numbers have gone up. Let's see. As of the 15th, it had crossed the 200 million mark globally, which I think took Fast 9 8 days to reach that. So boom, ScarJo with the win. Right.
I didn't see it in theaters. Did you see it in theaters?
No, I did see it on Disney Plus only because I wanted to make sure I watched it for this episode, but I will be seeing it in theaters because I think it deserves to be seen in theaters. Like, we've waited 10 years to get our standalone Black Widow movie. Meanwhile, all the other Avengers have 2, 3 movies.
It's been
she gets her one.
It's been a long time in coming. I need to go to the theaters to see it. There are no theaters nearby me that are currently open, so that's been my trouble. I also thought if I got it on Disney Plus, then I can continue to rewatch it.
That is true. And I will need to be rewatching it a couple times because honestly, I loved it. I really did. I was a big fan. So Genevieve and I, we've been reading some articles over the past week or so. And the one article that really jumped out at me was about just how much control Scarlett Johansson had over this film. Everything down to her wardrobe. Like, the article I read was hilarious. It said the costumer brought in like this whole spread of outfits for her to wear. And everything from like feminine to more, military style. And she instantly nixed anything with heels. She went immediately for the most comfortable, practical outfits, which of course we see in the film. And I was like, it's about fucking time. And, she's been giving interviews lately saying how sexualized Black Widow had been. She was just like, eye candy for Iron Man and for some of the other characters. And finally, in her standalone film, she gets to say, no, if I'm going to fucking kick ass, I'm going to be comfortable and practical about it. And I was like, you go, girl.
Right. Well, it also made the film feel a lot more real to me. I mean,
really
personally, things like that, like you just see, like, I don't want, like, I'm going to throw it under the bus, but Wonder Woman 1984, like,
which we promise we'll discuss at some point. It's just
at some point we'll get to it. It's just so it's so painful, and I don't want to watch it again, but I'm gonna have to watch it again to get more, like, to get a better perspective to voice my complaints online. But yes, so like in Wonder Woman, you obviously have the scenes where she's walking into the gala and she's got the dress and the heels and the hair, and it's like one of those showstopper moments. It's a showstopper moment, but it is also kind of like a stop the movie dead in its tracks moment where you're just like, well, now because it's a female superhero or a female protagonist, we have to have like the glow up moment where she's not like she ever needed a glow up.
Yeah, so it's the 80s, so it's even worse, because Yeah.
Yeah, there's always that one moment, or the female superhero walks into the room and it's just like, papa, male gaze, camera, like getting real Megan Fox from Transformers vibes. And there's always those moments that stop the move, like the film's dead in their tracks, and it's really obvious and distracting. Like it's just distracting and it's unneeded. So I feel like having that control and being able to basically edit out anything like that would be like male gazy, or that would just be like, yes, this is like your bombshell, like your bombshell entrance moment just felt refreshing. And honestly, I didn't like, until I read that article, I didn't really notice that that's what they were doing, but it felt seamless. The movie to me really felt seamless in visually in that way, where nothing to me was like, oh God, now we've got her butt shot, or like, now we've got to have the obligatory, like, you know, panning from the feet all the way up the body shot.
Yeah. And even when she was in kind of the tighter outfits, the white outfit and the black outfit, it was still very tactical. I mean, like, Captain America's outfit is skin tight. So I thought it was more on par with that. It's like, we didn't have the low zipper. And again, she was in flats. She didn't have the wedges, which we've seen in a lot of the previous ones. She wasn't fighting in lingerie, which to this day, I still don't understand why she had to be in lingerie for that fight. It was a badass fight. Did she have to be in lingerie for it? I don't know. But I love that. I just love that she took so much control. And then the whole conversation about pockets, like, sometimes
the pockets, I laughed at that so hard because I love cargo pants.
I say we've had this conversation. Like, Genevieve and I legit had a photo shoot a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about how much we love cargo pants, and that's like the one thing I miss about the Army was the cargo pants.
Oh, we had the legitimate pockets conversation.
Yeah.
Just in Pasadena on a trail, we were just like, yeah, pockets. I love pockets. I love pants that have pockets. And I was wearing my favorite pants that day. I'm just like, they've got so many pockets. I got my phone in here. I've got like an extra lens in here. Like, look at all these.
Exactly.
Perfect. So that's a real conversation. That felt really awesome. And just that flowed. For me, a lot of things just were nice and they flowed well. I think my biggest gripe with the movie is the we are invincible superheroes, because she's not a superhero, you know,
right?
Like, she doesn't have any like special superpower. She's kind of like Hawkeye, where she's very, very good.
Right. Well, they had the conversation about like, oh, I bet Mr. God doesn't have to take ibuprofen after a fight when they're going in the drugstore.
Right.
Yeah.
But like, it didn't get to the point for me where it was overly goofy, where you see these characters go through absolute hell and something that they would never survive. I mean, there were several moments like the car crashes and stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say when the floating, you know, building collapsed, and like she's jumping and fighting off of like groups and stuff. I was
like, I know she's impressive, but I kind of wished it was more of like a Bourne Identity, like John Wick sort of impressive. I mean, there was a lot of
start out like that. Yeah.
Yes. There was a lot of that mixed in there with the Marvel over the top action stuff. I think Marvel at this point, they've had so many like crazy action scenes with like, you know, involving magic and involving superheroes and all their different powers and stuff, that maybe this movie they just couldn't self-edit, and they were like, well, if we don't do this, then it's going to not read as powerful as the rest of our films.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure what the thought process behind that was, but to me, like a lot of those car crashes, the thing at the end where she's jumping off the floating palace was just like, no human on earth, like, I don't care how special you are, you'll never survive that.
Yeah,
like
I totally agree. When it got to that point, I was like, oh, now you're showing off your CGI budget. Okay.
Yeah. There was a lot of things that I did like about it. When I was watching it, I was like, this isn't putting on airs. It's not like wearing a mask or anything. It is a feminist film. And I really enjoyed that. Like the storyline was very good.
I mean, it's literally about freeing this group of women who have been brainwashed and mind controlled by a man, and setting them free. Like arguably the most powerful women in, non-mutants or superheroes aside, but like highly trained assassin type, very strong women, and freeing them from male control. I mean, that was the crux of the story, which I was just like, bam, okay.
Yeah, I thought that was really, really good. Like for me, I was like, oh my God. I wish they named it Black Widow Fighting the Patriarchy.
Right.
Because that's pretty much exactly what the script, like the whole story was about. Yeah. And I thought that they came at it and they didn't shove it down your throats, you know, like they weren't obvious about it, which as a feminist, I appreciate, because a lot of the times that stuff can come off very cringy, very cloying, and done very ham-fisted. This one, like you could watch it and you wouldn't even know. No, and I think like you can watch it and you can enjoy it and you don't even have to view it through that lens. However, for me, when I was watching it, I really appreciated the nuances of like not just the girls were trapped in this cycle, like everybody was, the guy, their father and their father was, what is his name? Alexei.
Oh my God, we're totally Alexei Shostakov, Red Guardian.
That's it. Sorry, Red Guardian. There we go. Red Guardian was stuck in it.
And he was honestly, he was the comic relief, which was, it's like you had the older, white cis male is now the one we're kind of making fun of, But the other thing that was really nice about it is it was the story of two women. It was the story of sisters, And this, again, this is one of my big problems with Wonder Woman, is that they don't give Diana a story of her own. Her story is intricately tied up with fucking Chris Pines's character unnecessarily. And it's like her motivation stems from her desire for this man and blah, blah, blah. Like, I can fly because you were a pilot and you inspired me. I'm like, dude, you're a fucking god. You needed a pilot to teach you how to fly. So that's the other thing I loved about Black Widow, was like, it's these two sisters. And then of course, Rachel Weisz's character is also quite hilarious, but it was just two sisters just doing what women do when they come together. They joke, they laugh, they talk about pockets, they make fun of unnecessary stances and hair flips, which I was like, that was well played with that.
Can you do that thing with your hair?
You do the thing with the hair.
That was great. I really appreciated that. I also thought it was interesting and brave of them to have Iron Maiden be aware and be like the perpetuator of this group of women, of enslaving these women, because like that's how that is very realistic to me in a way, because it's the women do perpetuate a lot of the issues that we find with the patriarchy. And they do it because they either need to survive, or they figure that that's the way that they're going to get ahead in life. And so it pits women against women. And I thought that was a very interesting and nuanced way of doing it. And, ultimately you figure out like she didn't have, that's the only choice she thought that she had. She didn't necessarily want to do it, but that was the vacuum in which she grew up in,
Right.
And so it was literally, I think she says like survival. It was all she knew.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so, and I really liked that. It was interesting finding out that, Yelena had no idea that the family unit was fake.
Right.
And, when they're at the dinner
table. Yeah.
Yeah. At the dinner table scene, like that was interesting.
She was like, you're the only parents I've ever known, or you're the only mother I've ever known, or she said something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought it was great. I was not at all expecting it to open up in Ohio at all. I was like, it's the right movie. What are we doing? What are we doing in Ohio?
I was like, wait, it's the 80s. Okay.
Also, whoever plays little Scarjo, like they put a flipper or something in her like mouth to give her the Scarlett Johansson teeth, like the exact same teeth. Or it was either a flipper or some sort of CG. I believe there was probably like a flipper, and that like whew, my brain just I just kept staring at it. And I was like, why? Well, at first I was wondering why she looked so much like Scarlett, and I was like, she had the lips much like her.
Yeah, she really did.
They did such a good job, like with the lips and the eyes and the like. She just had the right facial structure. I'm like, oh my god, the teeth.
Right.
They gave her. They gave her like Scarjo teeth. Yeah. And I was like, oh, that's it. That's what's weird about it. I'd rather have my kids like look like, I don't know, grown-up actor adjacent, because it does get very weird. It gets kind of like Breaking Dawn with like the CGI baby. Right.
You're like, did we have to do this for? Yeah. I mean, I guess the only thing I'm disappointed about is that this is the only one we're going to get. We're probably not getting another Black Widow. I mean, okay, yay, we're setting up Yelena for phase 4. Okay, so that's great. I mean, obviously, again, spoilers. Hopefully, if you're watching this, you've seen it.
Yeah, I know.
Well, we've already ruined it. But, post-credit scene, they are setting up Yelena for phase 4, probably, in the Hawkeye series and whatever. But it's like, this is probably all we're getting of Black Widow, unless... And it will probably merge into Loki here in a bit, unless we get these alternate timelines and they bring her back because she's in an alternate timeline, which hypothetically they could. I don't know what the contractual agreement is right now, what the status of her in the MCU is. If she's done, I don't know, but yeah.
Right. It could happen. I have to say, I was a little bitter at the end scene where like the after, the end credit scene where Yelena whistles and Scarjo doesn't like show up behind her. I was like, all right, well, if they were going to do it, they would have done it there. So,
right. And I mean, it seemed, the other thing it did is like, I think it really showed that Yelena, she's a chaotic neutral character, she's not an Avenger. And the fact that she truly believes that Hawkeye is responsible for her sister's death. I mean, and arguably like that was the thing I hated the most about Avengers. I was like, really? Yeah. Between Hawkeye and Black Widow, you killed Black Widow. I'm still bitter about that. But the fact that like, okay, she's going after Hawkeye now, like, okay, so she is not going to be an Avenger, at least right away. And, kind of Black Widow's story kind of started out like that too. It's like, she started off as not quite, she was more out for herself as opposed to like fighting the good fight. So that could be a very interesting where they take Yelena's character. Like, is she going to be an antagonist, or are they going to try and, bring her in with the Avengers or what have you?
Yeah, I don't know. I still have a bitter taste in my mouth with Infinity War, and there was a lot of things. Okay, so I probably wouldn't have been as mad about Infinity War if Avengers 2, if that storyline, if Black Widow's storyline did not happen.
Yeah.
There was a lot of things that just were said in that movie that was very cringy and just a big old mistake. A big old mistake. And when Infinity War came out, a lot of the decision on who lives and like who gets to live and who gets to die just kind of hinged on that, like kind of hinged on her storyline from Avengers 2. Like it really, it just really,
they kind of backed themselves into a corner with that. And
right. I mean, because like even if their decision had nothing to do with that, like to the audience, it reads like that because Hawkeye has a family. Black Widow is incapable of having a family. And they kind of make it seem like that, like the ability to have a family and the fact that he has one makes him more important than the woman who has kept the Avengers together for the past 5 years. And that like the fact that her infertility plays a role in the reason why she should be the one to die. And that like the fridging,
I totally just agree.
And in that, like I was so mad. It's a great film. It's actually one of my favorite ones, Infinity War. But like that is probably the darkest mark for me, like that it has on it. And just literally because of that storyline in Avengers 2.
And
like it things like that do follow people.
Well, and this goes, and this goes back to the fact that, Black Widow was, written, directed by a woman. Like when you have, and we've talked about this in the past on the show, it's like when you don't have diversity in your writing room, this is what fucking happens. It's like men, I'm going to shoot myself in the foot, but the patriarchy as a whole, not individual people, not everybody, still likes to define women and to tie up their worth in life with their fertility, with being mothers. And the fact that if women are not mothers, they are somehow less important, which is utter bullshit. It's like, women choose not to have kids for a whole variety of reasons or cannot have kids. And just because you are unable to have children or choose not to have children, that should not lower your worth. But that is still very much a mindset with a lot of people in this country. And it really needs to stop. I mean, and they obviously talk about it in Black Widow a little bit. They talk about how that choice was taken from that. It was honestly reminiscent of like Yennefer's conversation in The Witcher about like, the things that they had to do and what they had to sacrifice to become who they were. But, it doesn't diminish who they are as a person. So the fact that Hawkeye had more value because he has progeny, I was just like,
it's like the dude spent the past year like vigilanteing, just like murdering people.
He's kind of been a dick
because he felt like it,
right?
And it's like he just did not use his time wisely. Like I get it, your family is dead, so many other people's families are also dead, and the thing that you decide to do is like, I don't know, ditch the people that are left that care about you.
Right.
I don't know. The whole thing just, it put a really sour taste in my mouth. I went into Black Widow and constantly thinking to myself as I'm watching the movie, like, but she's dead.
I know, right?
And and that's kind of a question that I have really, like, for you, Lindsay, and like the audience, was it too late? Did the movie come too late? Like, is the fact that she's dead, does that put a dark shadow over the movie and just make it feel like filler? To me, I really enjoyed it. They did a great job piecing it together and presenting it again. The storyline there was a lot of little things that I think if you're not a woman or, know the female experience, that you would not really get a lot of the symbolism and like the minor things that they
but you can
talk
still
about.
enjoy it as just a fun
you can
action
still
movie.
enjoy it, but I don't think it would be as emotionally impactful and as important, like, because this had a lot of weight on it. Like Captain Marvel, to me, I was neither here or there about, it didn't really
we can have
me.
another show about that, because like Captain Marvel is my favorite superhero. I love Captain Marvel. I mean, I have others that are right up there with her, but I love Captain Marvel. But I had some issues with the story. I had issues with the casting. I am very excited for the Marvels, because and this is what to answer your question a little bit, this is what I think that they've done with Black Widow. We needed it. I'm glad we got it, but I do feel like it's too late. But I also feel like it's I think Marvel has evolved with Phase 4. And I think this is Marvel's attempt at being like, we hear you, you're right. Our female characters are just as important as our male characters, and we're going to stop considering them secondary characters. So like, now that we are getting Miss Marvel, She-Hulk, the Dora Milaje spinoff, the Marvels, we have WandaVision, possibly coming back. Loki's coming back for a second season, presumably with Sylvie. So I think Marvel has kind of been like, they've gone from the token female to now an expansive female roster, which hopefully they're going to properly use. But I think this was kind of we fucked up world. Here's your Black Widow,
we screwed up. We're sorry. We're now going to.
And the fact that Captain Marvel got a movie before Black Widow, again, I say this as a huge Captain Marvel fan, but she put in her due diligence. Like, she put into this universe for 10 years.
And everything that she was in, like, I have absolutely loved when her character pops up in things, because she just does such a great job.
Yeah. I mean, she is that. I mean, Scarlett Johansson is that character. She really is. Yeah.
Yeah. And her relationship with Steve Rogers is just so great. Like, I love
like when they were off the grid during the Civil War. Dynamic. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and even like,
I love, because I really do think that she turned into his, I mean, like, Bucky is obviously like his first best friend, but I honestly think that she kind of replaced Bucky in a way, and was like, and not even a sidekick, a friend, a fellow, Avenger in arms that, that he could go to for, that he could go to for help, that he could, ask their opinion on. I actually noticed in the first Avengers movie, and I never noticed this before, I don't know why, but we were watching it in the break room the other day, and it's the moment where it's after Loki escapes and has scattered the Avengers. Steve Rogers comes in to whatever the little med room is, where Black Widow and Hawkeye just had their conversation. And I think he just says, like, "Are you ready to go?" Or no, he asks, he's like, "Can any of you fly a plane?" And then Hawkeye's like, "I can." And then he's like, "You've been brainwashed for like the past week. Like, can we trust you?" And he just looks at Nat, and she gives him just a nod. And that's all he needed. That was all he needed in order to believe that Hawkeye was okay. Like, he trusted her that much, even at the point of, like, I assume that they kind of know each other. They didn't obviously have the rapport that we, the audience, have seen, but like, that was actually a big moment just to have that much trust, and even though Steve obviously has the super soldier serum, he is enhanced. At the end of the day, they're the two members of the team that have like been soldiers and fought in wars, obviously in different ways, but it's like Thor's a god, Bruce Banner's a scientist and the Hulk, Tony Stark is
rich and has a suit, and Hawkeye, I don't even know, Hawkeye's Hawkeye, but I feel like, Nat and Steve both can kind of like, they understand that. I think they come from that background of understanding conflict, and then, the bond that forms, between people. Yeah. But
yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I honestly, I feel I'm very happy that Marvel is making amends, rectifying past mistakes, and I applaud them for growing, and they've done it very quickly too.
They really have.
I don't know, since WandaVision, like that was the start, and they're just like the women.
Yes.
I was like, oh, thank you. And like that's like,
yeah. Well, the other thing is they're not giving us women on pedestals either, which would have been the other shitty thing to do. These characters are all super flawed. Wanda is almost an anti-hero. I mean, she's a bad guy at one point. Then, we've got Sylvie, who super badass character. Also, a lot of issues there, a lot of baggage to unpack. And then obviously we have Black Widow, we have Yelena. Like, they're giving us these characters that just have lots of depth and layers. So it's not just like, which is, again, kind of the issue with Wonder Woman. It's like, you're a god and you're wonderful and you save people.
Right.
What else?
I think, okay, so, wow, giant wad of cat hair. So, come here, buddy.
You're freezing a little bit.
So what actually surprised me about Black Widow and is the fact that her big character flaw, the thing that keeps her awake at night, is the fact that she thinks and she completely intended to kill a child. Like, that's really big. Usually you never, like with male characters, with male protagonists, that happens a lot. You have Jason Bourne, actually, never mind, that doesn't even work. He didn't kill the children, and therefore he got into a boatload of trouble. But you see that a lot with like male characters. Like they'll be like, they did this like horrible thing that they have to, atone for, or they feel like, that is, their dark past. And you're like, oh, okay, so like you are complicated, you are complex. John Wick basically spent his entire life killing folk. And Black Widow is very much the same, but like to give her like she was so desperate that she had to get out, that she could like, that she made that commitment and like that decision that is insane. I don't think I've really seen that with a female superhero before. You see it with other things like Atomic Blonde and, things that are not, they're that's
questionable,
not like a superhero. But it's not a Marvel movie. It's not a movie that like, take your kids to, know? So I thought that was very interesting. I don't know how, like, it doesn't sit wrong with me, but at the same time, I found it weird that she did that with Hawkeye and under of course, SHIELD is Hydra, but they really didn't they weren't so mask off about it at that point that you'd be like, well, of course they would do that. Like they were, at that point in time, they were still acting like the good guys and like building up to the world domination plot.
Exactly.
So I thought that was a little odd that like that was the moment that she did it, and she didn't do it as like a lone actor, because I could see that more so where she, she did that before, and then maybe Hawkeye comes after her after that happens. I don't know. The whole Budapest thing was, the explanation for what that was kind of odd. And
I'm interested to see where they're gonna, if that's even gonna come back in the Hawkeye series. Like, are we gonna touch on this again? Or
I think they pretty much wrapped it up. Like they put a bow on it.
They really did.
I just think that, I don't know. I just think that maybe that wasn't like, I know it's this big infamous thing, like the Budapest mission, and everybody's like talking about it, like all the fans of movies, but they're kind of like talking like it's this kind of like weird, quirky, fun adventure. You're killing a child.
It was not at all. Like, exactly.
No, like it's super dark. Like it really didn't fit the tone of like what they had been suggesting the Budapest mission.
Like we just had shenanigans going on. There was some car chases and
there's some like weird shenanigans and like, you know, I pulled out the wrong arrow. I like shot somebody with my sticky arrow instead of the splody arrow. No, that's not at all what happened.
Yeah.
And it felt weird. If it were anything but that, I think it would have played better.
Right.
But yes, oh my gosh, we need to talk about Taskmaster.
Oh yes. So obviously people have had mixed opinions on how this character was portrayed in the film. And huge obviously spoilers, she's probably also got a future in phase 4. It seems like they are setting her up for the future. I mean, at least it seemed like they kind of brought her back to not being brainwashed at the end, but who knows? What are your thoughts?
Well, I actually, okay. So the MCU for me is just like, I don't know, you know, those words that you know, that your parents had on the fridge, and like, you can make like little poetry and sentences out of them.
Have like those on my fridge.
I feel like the MCU is a box of those words that they took from the Marvel comics, and they just threw them up on the fridge, and they're like, all right, let's piece together what we want. Like, what do we like? What do we not like? What can we kind of twist around and make our own?
Right.
And I like that about the MCU, because I don't want the same stories that I'm reading in the comics.
Well, Kevin Feige has said,
boring.
Yeah. And he said, we're not taking directly from the comics. Like he has said that from the get-go.
Why would you want something that you've already read? Like it seems kind of like first grade, like, oh, well, I've seen the Frozen movie, so now obviously I gotta buy the Frozen book, which is the exact same story, and then I gotta go see like the Frozen musical, which is the exact same story over and over again. We are not 5. We should be looking for more nuanced stories, like different stories, like the same thing that we love, that's great, but told in a different fashion. So I really don't have a problem with them taking that character and turning it on its head and making it something new that we haven't seen before. Did they do it in a way that I thought was good?
Right.
I have mixed opinions. I like the idea that Natasha has to face like her past again, like the worst thing that she's ever done. And that really is the thing that has her shaken. And that, you know, that was very interesting to me. Like that was the one thing that like really like shook her to the core.
Well, and if they'd gone with Tony Masters, you know, who is Taskmaster in the comic books, he's a mercenary. So now we're just getting another generic mercenary in our story. And it's like, well, we've already got essentially a cast of mercenaries, assassins, you know, whatever. Right. It's like, I agree. I mean, again, your peers are a little upset, but I agree with you. Like, I liked that she, again, you know, very Shakespearean, had to face her demon at the end, you know, had to face the one event in her life that she, of anything else, probably holds the most remorse about. And then, of course, is able to save her at the end, you know, makes that decision. She's like, well, you're probably going to kill me, but I'm letting you out of this cage. I think if she had just fought another super suit mercenary or whatever, it wouldn't have had
the mirror. Like, here's the thing. and this is just my opinion, but like the whole mirroring fighting thing, they pulled it off really well. It looked really cool.
Did. A lot of body doubles.
But it's a gimmick. Okay. Like it's a gimmick. And if they just stuck with that till the end and had no other point other than to have like a second baddie, you know, like to have the brute character alongside, you know, the actual main villain, which I can't remember what his name is, creepy old dude.
Her dad.
Who was terrifying. That guy was absolutely terrifying. Dreykov. Yeah. Dreykov was terrifying, dude. Like,
well, he literally controls people. That's all he does. Like he controls Olga. Taskmaster. He controls, Antonia. Olga's the actress's name. He controls Taskmaster. He controls all of the Black Widows. Like he literally has spent his life taking away everyone else's free will.
He's also like a very weird, like he stands in like for the, you know, the men in suits who run everything, you know what I mean? Like the very few, like the upper echelon people who are the ones that actually decide things in society and that, you know, that like run things. And like he definitely like was a placeholder for that. And there is a line where he's like, these, you know, these women and these girls, like they were nothing but trash and I'm using them to have a purpose. That was terrifying, like in a very real way. And it was gross, like seeing him on screen and his, like the actor who plays him does such a good job, because I felt disgusting. I felt gross listening to everything that he was saying. And that was like primo, great accomplishment. Exactly what that character needed, that he was exactly what that character needed to be. Otherwise he would have just been like this, like, ho, Mr. Bond, like I've got you now sort of thing. Like I'm the one pulling this whole strings behind the thing. Like I'm the man behind the curtain. But no, they really gave him something to do, something to say, a character to be. And that was great. Going back to Taskmaster, if it wasn't Dreykov's daughter, I think I would have just been like, of course, now we got the brute character and she's fighting him. And it just is a bit gimmicky. It had the potential of being Ryan Reynolds in the Wolverine movie. Which one was it? That was just Wolverine, right? Where
the standalone Wolverine,
sewed up, and God, it could have easily have turned into that. I'm not saying that they did it perfectly, because I don't think it could have been a little bit more polished, but it wasn't anywhere near becoming that. And I'm just glad that there was a purpose behind having it be a woman. And
again, that's the other thing about, you know, looking at these things through a female lens and getting more women in the writer's room. It's like, yes, we love our big female superheroes, but it's like, women can be evil too. Like, I mean, Rachel Weisz's character was ambiguous at best, but like, yes, give us some female villains. Like Hela is still one of the greatest villains that the MCU has given us. So like, please give us more female villains who are badasses, you know, it's like, And, you know, and I mean, I could tell it was a woman from, I mean, you can see how people walk, but I like how at the beginning, they kind of, with the suit, it was ambiguous you know, it's like, is it a woman? Is it a man? Not really sure. So, you know, that was kind of an interesting touch too.
It made me think of Ant-Man 2. It really just kind of gave me those vibes as well. It didn't like completely copy it per se, but like you got a lot of people in white suits in Black Widow. You got like the gender reveal of like, it's not a man, it's a woman the whole time. And the sort of like, not only is it a woman and they're the villain, but they're also misunderstood and they need to be, you know, they need help, and we're gonna help.
Oh, you just froze.
And, you know, like
you froze, Jen.
Taskmaster, and with that character.
Oh God. Yeah.
And
I mean, yeah. I mean, I feel like Marvel is going in the right direction, and
yes,
you know, yeah. I mean, and obviously Loki is completely set up phase 4 now for everything that's coming. And so we'll see where Yelena goes. We'll see where, you know, how all of the chips, you know, end up chips lie, you know, whatever, with everything moving forward. Unless, you know, again, we've got all the timelines now, so they could still bring Black Widow back. I don't know. Yes. I mean, if we can bring back all the Spider-Men,
right. I mean, seriously, it all just depends on if ScarJo is done with it.
Right.
If they really, really just want to move into phase 4 with a fresh start.
Right.
Because there are literally hundreds of characters that are at their disposal now. And maybe they just don't want to retread, you know, old ground. I feel like they finally caught their stride with Thor. So they're not quite done with Thor now that they're like, we figured the character out.
It only took 3 movies. We couldn't give Black Widow 1, but we could fuck up 2 Thor movies until we get it right. But that's fine. It's fine. It's fine. That's fine.
Right.
But no, I'm very excited. I'm like the Jane Foster Thor. Like, I say how much I love Captain Marvel, but like the Jane Foster Thor storyline in the comics I loved that. And I've since read all of the Jane Foster Valkyrie series, and I'm like, are we setting up Jane Foster to be Valkyrie? Because that would be epic. And then we have all our standalone Valkyrie, you know, movies. I don't know. Natalie Portman seems like a really busy person, but I was like, when I saw we were doing the Jane Foster story arc, I was like, can we please get Valkyrie out of this? Because, you know, I mean, if anyone's read the Valkyrie comics, the Jane Foster Valkyrie comics, they're fantastic. I love what they've done with the character. And yeah, it really gives her something to go. So.
Because I mean, clearly they're not opposed to mashing up characters. Right. Because Sylvie is basically like, they basically took Enchantress and like made her a Loki variant.
Right.
I mean, Enchantress is a part of Loki, created by Loki, but I feel like they're like, all right, we got this concept of a Loki variant, and we've got the existing character of Enchantress. I'm gonna do that. Like now that Valkyrie herself is queen of Asgard, I could totally see her inviting Jane Foster to take up the mantle of Thor, you know, like kind of take the place, not take up the mantle, but kind of take the place of that guardian, you know, position of the savior of Asgard, XYZ.
Right.
So, you know, you could probably mash up that storyline too. I'm very glad that they're, you know, doing this, because I mean, when you had the early 2000s superhero movies, everything was like, we go like strictly by the comic book, and like they didn't cut out any weird gimmicks or strange things that made the movies goofy, you know, like they were very like by the book. This is how they are, so this is how they're going to be portrayed on screen.
Right.
And
well, I think it's, you know, early on, you know, when Marvel in its nascent stage, it's like, we don't know how these are going to work out. We better be true to the comics, because we got to get those fans in. And now they're just like, everybody loves us. We can do what we want. Yeah. But they're doing it well. And so I was like, even as a comic book fan, like, and this is how I feel about like book adaptations. It's like, I appreciate the source material for what it is. You know, like I love The Boys. I've read all The Boys graphic novels. Love it. I love the TV show. I do not mind the changes that they made for it. Like, you know, it works. I mean, because you have to change things up for the medium. Like you cannot be a cookie cutter. And sometimes when, you know, they've tried to force things into a new and different medium, and it just doesn't work right. Like I feel like Marvel has has struck that balance very well.
Yeah. No, I agree completely. It's nice, it's refreshing to have, new things, like we were saying before,
like we've read the comics, we want to see the new stuff.
Right, exactly. Like
then they still throw in the Easter eggs that you're like, oh yeah.
I like trusting artists. I am a big fan of trusting artists to do what their profession is. Like a lot of the times that can get bogged down with studio involvement. A lot of the times it can get bogged down by, people saying like, no, like Hawkeye and or Black Widow or whoever we're talking about needs to be exactly this because that's how they are in the comics. That's how I remember them. And I don't think, like, if you're given something that has been created by, by somebody else, by another artist, I think you owe it to them to not only take care of these properties, their characters, their creations, but also to add to it.
Right. Like you can honor them, but transcend,
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Yeah. So, I mean, I have a lot of hope. I have a lot of faith in the future of the MCU.
I do. And to be honest, I thought I was very marveled out after the last Avengers came out. I thought that I was not going to like pay the next, phase 4 any mind. And it got me. It sucked me, not so much with WandaVision.
Yeah.
Not so like, Captain America. I mean, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I really enjoyed that. I thought that was, that was fun and it was interesting.
Yeah.
Loki was the one that I was like, oh my God, okay. I'm really excited for what's coming next. Like that's the one that I was like, okay, like I am looking forward to what we have coming next because
most people seem to be foundation. Yeah, the most people that I've talked to seem to feel the same way. Like most people, they loved WandaVision, Falcon Winter Soldier. It was good. It wasn't anything different, really. And then Loki,
I would have to agree. It was fun.
It was. It hit on some political issues that really needed to be addressed. So, like, props to Marvel for going to the places where they went and talking about the issues that needed to be talked about. Like, I give them a lot of credit for for doing that and for setting up the Dora Milaje spinoff. Very excited about that. But yeah, it wasn't, and maybe honestly, it's an actor thing. Like Tom Hiddleston, Owen Wilson, and Sophia, I can't remember her name. Anyways, those 3 main actors and even the supporting cast in Loki are just so compelling. They're so compelling. And,
well, everybody had something to do. They all had this, this great dynamic between them. Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I thought they had like a nice dynamic.
Yeah.
I didn't get that magnetism that I got with Loki and Mobius. Like that, like it was a very like quick back and forth, like very quippy, very fast, very sharp. And the dialogue was so smart.
So smart. You could tell, like, and they weren't afraid to add the comedy because obviously Owen Wilson comes from a comedy background. I mean, quite frankly, Tom Hiddleston can do anything. Which I think that was kind of what was missing. Like the few light moments in Falcon and Winter Soldier kind of felt pushed. So yeah, I agree. It had the snappy banter, but everything was still very underplayed, which is a credit to the writing, but also to the actors.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I thought it was, sorry, I'm looking at Wolfgang. He looks like he's going to knock things off the table. I thought it was great. I am a huge fan of Loki. I really enjoyed Black Widow, even though it took us nowhere and prepared us for nothing in the future. Like
it was an homage to her.
I'm excited. That's kind of what it felt like. we have Yelena. I'm very excited. I thought she was like amazingly written, amazingly portrayed. Definitely very different from what we get in the comics. Instead of being an antagonist, she is a not a sidekick, but a partner to Black Widow. And I thought that was very nice, because then you don't have two women fighting each other, which is what you usually always end up with. I don't know why in superhero movies, like if there is one bad guy, like female bad guy, and then there's one female good guy, like in the group, they will fight each other and solely and only each other. I think
part of that comes down to is like, we don't want to see women and men fighting. And you're just like,
yes, I do.
Black Widow's kicked a lot of fucking ass. I definitely want to. It's okay. It's okay in this context. Like,
right. We all know it's, we all know it's fake. Like, it's superheroes. It's a superhero battle.
We are not, it's all within context. Like, yes, if we are talking about violence against women in another context, absolutely, that's a whole other conversation. But we're talking specifically, superhero genre, people who are either powered or have extensive training and are badasses and can, exactly. Which, that was one of the reasons I loved Atomic Blonde, was because they weren't afraid to go there. Like, they were not afraid for Charlize Theron's character to kick ass and also get her ass handed to her. So that was one of the things I really appreciated a lot about that movie.
Right. Well, that's because when you have just all the tension is sucked out of something, like you're not going to have like anybody to root for if you know that, like, oh, this is just it's the girl on girl fight that they're not going to really take very seriously, but we just feel like we got to have it and we're just going to throw it in there. Whereas when it is something where you do treat it like any other fight that you would between like a guy and a guy, when you do treat it like any other fight that you would have in any other superhero movie, you add stakes back in, you add intention, you add in intention.
Yes.
It's just more interesting.
Yeah.
And nothing is more annoying or boring to me than a lackluster fight, like a fight that has no purpose. Yeah. Because I check out immediately, because if it doesn't further the story along, I'm just like, okay, goodbye. There's no point. I fast forward through it, like, right. And that's really sad because, like, people work really, really hard to like get these fights together. But when it doesn't translate on screen, when it doesn't work, it's just like biggest yawn and a big disappointment.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, on that note, those are our thoughts on Black Widow and, some other parts of the MCU. But let us know your thoughts. Put them down in the comments. Tell us what you think.
Yes.
As always,
would like to know your thoughts about the Taskmaster thing.
Yeah.
I love to hear that. That was the one thing. Oh, and I want to know what you think about the Budapest storyline. Like, I need to. Yeah, we need to know. Did they go too far? Was it? Yeah. I'm fresh off of seeing the movie, so it hasn't really like settled with me quite yet, and I haven't.
Well, now I feel like I need to go back and watch all the other movies to like actually watch the scenes where they talk about the Budapest, incident or whatever, to just be like, how did you talk about this? Were you laughing? Yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, it's always kind of in like a joking way. Like, you and I remember Budapest very differently. Like, clearly if you're killing children.
Yeah. Oh, and the only other thing I will add in, tying back into flat shoes and practical wardrobe, is hair ties.
Yeah.
Hair ties.
Hair ties. Right now.
Yeah. Because you know what women don't like to do? Fight with hair in their face. It's annoying. And Genevieve and I both do a lot of fighting. And I always have my hair pulled back or braided or headband or something. So thank you, Marvel. Thank you for putting her hair in braids. Thank you for putting it in ways that keep it out of her face.
Right.
Very much appreciative because, again, there's, you know, even as a superhero, I don't think you have someone with a fan following you around, blowing your hair back so it's not in your face. So that's, sorry, I hadn't mentioned it earlier, but I just had to say, I appreciate the use of practical hair styles.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us. Just the two of us for this,
just us. Full frontal, Linsay and Genevieve together. Just the dynamic duo. If you like this kind of thing where we do like a movie reviews, just kind of like deep dive into what our thoughts are, please let us know below. We would love to do more stuff like this while we're hammering out the details of our reaction videos.
Still pending approval. That's fine.
Yes. Yeah. We are new to this, so you know we're trying to get our sea legs.
The YouTube,
we're trying to get our sea legs, so to speak. So let us know if you like this kind of stuff, and we'll do it again. Just Linsay and I. Me and Linsay. Yes, if you want to follow us, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, ring that bell so that you get notified every time that we upload a video. We always upload Friday at noon Pacific Standard Time, and we would love to hear your thoughts and comments, and we'll see you in the next one. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Bye.
Bye.